Hello, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you don't mind, go ahead and give the thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Really helps out growing the channel and everything. Today I want to take a second to talk about the philosophy of camouflage, or in some general sense we want to talk about uniforms and uniform for citizens. So for a while, camouflage was something that I really nerded out over. Just different patterns, ones from Europe, crazy exotic ones, and ones that like only Navy SEALs were using or the Marine Corps was using. And it is a very large rabbit hole that you can fall down into and go down. And that's fine and all, but what I want to tailor this video towards is figuring out what color waves, camouflage patterns, and uniforms make sense for a citizen trying to get prepared, or perhaps even multiple people prepared, maybe in a team. And we're going to categorize that a few different ways, and I'm going to show you a couple of the conclusions that I have drawn and give a couple examples of patterns that I think work well together and make sense for a prepared citizen trying to buy something that will make him or his team look uniform. Uniform being a matching and a likeness that you share with your team. It gives everybody order and being able to positively identify each teammate as a part of the team based off of what you are wearing. That's kind of what we're shooting for. So the important thing to remember here is that as citizens, we're not issued any sort of gear or supposed to look any sort of way. And there are a few ways that we need to organize and determine what we are going to wear. Now, this being said, if you're just planning on being like a lone sniper or someone who's not going to work with anybody, this video is really not for you. The whole reason for me in breaking down this criteria is to show some examples of trying to match gear to camouflage and match showing a couple patterns that are easy to acquire so that you can match with multiple people. The biggest thing here honestly being availability, but I'm going to go through a couple criteria that I believe are important in order to come to the conclusion of which pattern or camouflage is best for you. And I'm also going to roll in some camouflage that I have in front of the camera today. And all this being said, something you're probably thinking, and also could be the answer, is that you don't need any camouflage at all. I know this stuff looks cool and it's fun, and it's cheap enough to where I don't think that there's really a reason not to have some camouflage or have some camouflage uniform. But chances are for citizens that we probably wouldn't ever really need to use camouflage, in all honesty. Camouflage patterns such as M81, for example, is trying to conceal you in a woodland environment or in whatever environment your pattern is trying to match. But that being said, the military camouflage patterns, they do give you a sense of like identification, for either up close or afar. But we're going to go through it for sake of discussion, a couple of criteria that you should analyze before buying your own camouflage pattern or you're deciding your system to go with. First of all, being price. This needs to fit your own personal budget and your own willingness to pay. Because as I just discussed, as a citizen, you're not going to be wearing this very often. Unless you have a place to play airsoft out in the woods and wear this stuff, or unless you just really like getting carried away on range day and dressing in full camouflage, which for most people is pretty abnormal, especially if you're going to be making stops out in public. You're going to draw a lot of attention to yourself. chances are this BDU, this battle dress uniform, is not going to be something that you wear very often or use much. It is something that is great to train in for sure. And backpacking, hiking, and wearing it, doing activities like that is probably the best use you're going to get out of it for yourself in order to train with it. So just understand that where I'm going with this is if you really have the money and you really want to go spend close to $1,000 on Cries or UF Pro or some combination of clothes like that, that's a very high quality garment that you're going to be buying, and they're going to be great. I love UF Pro, for example. I'm a really big fan of their pants. However, I'm conscious about how much I'm actually spending on it, because if I get a trouser or a pant in a camouflage pattern, it's like, well, I'm going to look like a freak if I'm wearing that out very often. And it's also good to understand that if you're going to be spending a lot of money on a really good pant, you might want to be able to wear it in a variety of environments, especially one that you might want to be staying concealed in. For example, my favorite trouser that I have purchased, it's a UF Pro. It's like the P40 Tactical, I think, or something like that, but it's the P40. They don't have like the crazy knee pads. It looks like a backpack, just like a hiking pant. And it's in olive drab. I also have set up with my friends that I coordinate this stuff with that we wear green trousers and we wear a camouflage top, an M81 camouflage top, as a way to identify our each other in case we were out in a woodland environment doing something. That's the way that we would look to identify each other. Moving on from price, we're going to talk about availability. So obviously, if you have some extremely niche piece of equipment that you and your team or your friends can't go out and replicate, 5 more times, it's not going to be very effective. You need equipment, color waves that other people are going to be able to buy and to duplicate and to scale on. That is only important really if you were concerned about working in a team environment, like I said before. Third, we want to look at quality, whether this be NIR compliance, durable material, ripstop material, water repellency, depending on your garment, or even flame retardant qualities like you get with something like the Cries. That is going to be based off of kind of what you want, and some of that quality is going to increase price. For example, these garments are old. They are NIR compliant. They are durable. They're not as durable as some other garments, and they're certainly not flame retardant. But that quality, or that style of material that you're looking for, is going to fluctuate your price a lot more as well. And then lastly, and I think this is the most important, and this is going to guide the rest of this discussion in this video, is actually that this camouflage pattern that you choose actually matches one of your home country's combat uniform patterns. So this is going to filter out all of the other non-United States camouflage patterns, but I'm not going to talk about them in this video. There's a lot of cool ones. There's a lot of effective ones. I mean, some of the new German camouflage patterns are like insane. They're wicked cool. But the reason that I want to stray away from that is because in case there were something like, let's throw out the situation of a foreign country invading the United States. It would be good to be within the United States wearing a United States camouflage pattern so that you could not possibly get misidentified as a foreign fighting force. And so for that reason, we're just going to stick with U.S. camouflage patterns. It's also going to make it easier for the discussion when it comes with price and availability. You're going to see that your US stuff is just going to be easier to get your hands on. So what are our solutions for these criteria? I am first going to recommend USGI surplus. I wish that people or anyone would have recommended me looking into surplus whenever I was getting into camouflage gear for my guns and outdoors equipment in general. Years and years and years ago, whenever I first started, I just didn't know where to look to get entry-level equipment, and there's no better way to get entry-level equipment than to get secondhand surplus stuff that nobody really wants. It's going to be great quality, being NIR compliant, durable nylon material for like chest-worn gear or backpacks. It's going to be ripstop. It's going to have some water repellency. Some of it also might hold a lot of water. You got to kind of be careful, and it might not be the very best if you're looking for something that doesn't hold a whole lot of water. But out here in the east, we get a lot of rain. In the southeast, we get a lot of rain, and I still run U.S. surplus stuff plenty. It's a good idea to have rain equipment to block out the rain, obviously, and to not get your gear soaking wet in the first place. And that is a whole nother monster, trying to get rain repellent equipment that is affordable and matches your color waves that you're trying to choose. But besides US surplus, we're going to look at modern like nylon gear retailers, people like TRX Arms, Ferro Concepts, Spiritus Systems, AWS Gear, really anyone that you can get any sort of nylon gear from. Their color patterns matter. Is it going to match the camouflage you're wearing? Is it going to match what you want for your uniform? And then there's also, lastly, what I recommend is like high quality airsoft uniforms. So there's companies like Emerson Gear, Helicontact, and Ops Tactical. I don't have a lot of experience with many of these retailers, but from gear that I have seen, touched, and felt, most of that stuff is good to decent quality. It depends kind of what you are buying. But those would be the areas that I would look into personally going into this for the first time. So I'm going to first talk about why I've chose M81 Woodland, and then we're going to start dissecting some of really the 4 camouflage patterns that I'm going to prescribe that I think meet the needs of people here in the United States. But this is my M81 Woodland BDU. I bought it secondhand off of eBay. I'm not exactly sure how old it is. I'm pretty sure this garment is fairly old though. And the main reason that I bought this is because it was cheap. I knew I wasn't going to be using it a lot, and it was the camouflage pattern that I wanted. I really do love M81 Woodland, and as we will see, I will prescribe this camouflage pattern for you if you live in the Southeast. Pretty much, I think this is one of the best. I mean, I guess this is all opinion based, but I think M81 Woodland performs very, very well. The pros of this is that, first of all, it is not used by any like current forces in the U.S., so it's not going to be like worn by everyone. Everyone's wearing multicam who is serving in the U.S. military, so you're not going to look like you're pretending to be in some branch of the military. And the cost of it and the proliferation of it is pretty popular right now. It's easy to get secondhand stuff still. Some of it is drying up, and you can't get everything in M81 Woodland because it is such an old pattern, but there are modern nylon retailers that are starting to make M81 Woodland gear. TRX Arms, for example, came out with their a bunch of products in M81 Woodland not too long ago, and I think Spiritus Systems does as well. And I think Spiritus Systems even came up with like tiger stripe camouflage pattern equipment. So I would say the cons to this BDU, and the one I have specifically, is this gear can be a little bit more worn out. Some of the color can sometimes be deteriorated, or this pattern's really not standardized. It's not all made the same. And some of these materials just aren't made up to date. There's some like wonky features, and this cotton can kind of make you hot easily and hold some moisture. So like I said, you kind of have to be careful about like how and when you're going to wear it. And like here in the Southeast, it's hot more often than it's not. So I do kind of have to be careful, especially like if I'm going to wear the pants is usually the biggest problem, and it just like holding heat and moisture. I also choose woodland because it goes very well with a variety of like solid color patterns, and the ones that I'll list off being like Ranger Green, for example, Coyote Brown, the United States Marine Corps color of like Coyote Brown, dyed UCP gear, that green looks really good, and even black, but I wouldn't really recommend black vest or gear at all, pretty much for any reason. Now I'm going to start rolling across some equipment that I have and some pictures of the camouflage patterns that we're going to talk about and kind of like their applications. So the 4 that I picked that I think match price, quality, availability, and all our United States camouflage patterns very well include M81 Woodland, Marpat, Multicam, and AOR1. It's pretty much like a desert Marpat pattern. It's just digital. So you see we have like 2 kind of I don't know how to describe the patterns, woodland-esque patterns, Multicam and M81, and then Marpat and AOR1 for 2 digital patterns. Just kind of ended up being that way by coincidence, but you can see that Marpat and woodland are kind of prescribed for the more temperate rainforest environment, and AOR1 and Multicam are for the more arid to semi-arid environments. And I wanted to also show with this diagram that the patterns that Coyote Brown looks pretty good with, and also the patterns that Ranger Green starts to look pretty good with. And then outside of those colors, I mean, it wouldn't really make sense to wear bright Coyote Brown with woodland and like a dark weird shade of Ranger Green in a very dry arid environment. So this, like I said, it all depends on your environment and where you live, but I try to give some flexibility with these patterns. Next, this being a map of kind of generally where I see these patterns working best based off of where you possibly live in the United States. It's pretty straightforward from there. The good thing is about these patterns, like I said, is you can find a variety of like used like Marpat equipment from surplus retailers, and it's also going to be United States Marine Corps equipment, which is going to be usually better quality or have just better features, I would say. It's usually, they're just more feature-rich equipment than the Army stuff, which you're going to find in UCP. The Marine Corps equipment's great, and you have to be careful, like it is going to be Coyote Brown, but if you want to get Marpat and then like Coyote Brown equipment for the East, you can always just like touch it up with a little bit of Ranger Green spray paint, and that is going to work great for you. But there can be just a variety of equipment that is found in Marpat, like tents, sleeping bags, just all the Marine Corps stuff. It's going to be really good. So that is definitely a great advantage of going with some of the Marine Corps garments because they're going to be higher quality or more feature rich, and also like the vests, the FLCs, or any surplus Marine Corps equipment that you can get your hands on. And as for Multicam, need not say a lot about Multicam. You can get everything in Multicam. I mean, literally everything. and everyone's very familiar with it. So I'm really not going to speak to that too much. But what I will say is that if you do like the pattern, I would just be careful. I don't know where you live, but in my experience, I do not think that multicam works very well in the Southeast. I think it can work good in very specific areas, but as for a generally like a woodland pattern in a place that I live with a lot of foliage and a lot of tree coverage, I see woodland and marpat just being much superior camouflage patterns. I like the fact that they have black in the patterns, and a lot more of it than in multicam, whereas I've experienced that with wearing multicam in the Southeast, it looks more like I'm bright tan than I'm like camouflage green. And I think that whether it's like tiger stripe, marpat, or woodland, it really breaks up your silhouette and incorporates like there being shadows from trees and leaves with the black and the dark browns. Like I said, my opinion. So I'm going to start rolling some equipment across and just kind of talking about the patterns that I actually possess and kind of like the reasons for it. First, just being, here's an example of M81 on M81 woodland. And then also some like Ranger green action over here. This is actually also dyed UCP with Ranger green spray paint on it. As you can see, no problems here. And actually this is the only upper garment that I own, so I might throw some other stuff in front of it just to kind of show it matching and like what makes sense to me. But that's a good example of just like a color that's just not in conflict with what you're wearing. This is also what Ranger green and black looks mixed with the M81. And I'm going to start getting into my more controversial equipment. Here is my tap, which I kind of have set up for hiking, backpacking right now. It's not really loaded up with anything. But this is actually multicam that has been dyed a little bit with apple green Rit dye. And this is obviously some dyed UCP that you're getting on there as well. Because I don't like multicam that much for where I live, like I said, if you're going to get the pattern, I think dyeing it is actually a really great solution. If you really like multicam and maybe you already have all your stuff in multicam, but you live in the Southeast, like, I'm not saying replace all of it. Chances are it's all really great stuff and like really good quality, clothes or gear. But I do think touching it up with a little bit of dye, if you're up to the challenge, which it's not hard, it's not that bad, you're not going to ruin it by any means. It's going to look really good, and it's going to blend with your environment a lot better. I just want to like swear by that almost. Lastly, I'm going to go on my UCP rant. So UCP is like hailed as like the ugliest camouflage pattern. Just, it doesn't work anywhere. However, it's Army equipment and you can find it everywhere. There is so much UCP out there. It is going to be the cheapest. It's going to be the best quality, or not the best quality, sorry, but it's going to be as good quality as any of the other surplus equipment. Marine Corps stuff's usually a little bit better, but Marine Corps stuff can have higher wear to it, so you have to be careful there. There's a lot more defective or broken Marine Corps equipment than there is just unused, unwanted UCP Army equipment. So you can really get, like a full rifleman loadout, flick, loaded up with a bunch of goodies, have more than you need, even get a full uniform and dye it, and still be really good on like the amount of money that you spent for this whole setup. I'm just gonna go ahead and roll on one of my flicks that I have loaded up with UCP that is dyed. And you can see the color does look pretty good. I typically touch these up with spray paint Ranger green spray paint to like break up anything that's like shiny or some slightly undyed spots and just make it darker. But if you don't spray paint it, this is what it looks like. It does turn out to be really nice, and I haven't ever tried to spray paint it like a desert, or not spray paint it, but dye it like a desert color. But it also may work dyeing it like a light brown, or even a slightly darker brown that you could use out in an arid or semi-arid environment. Now, the biggest con to dyeing like your uniform this color that I could see is it starts to come in conflict with having a camouflage pattern that actually matches your home country, because this is no longer UCP, not really. This is not really like a recognizable United States pattern. I don't see a problem having like equipment that is not matching your uniform. I don't think there's anything wrong with, for example, having whatever color M81 woodland as your color, and then a Ranger green equipment on top of that. I think that actually looks very good, very professional. Same thing with this. It doesn't really matter. But once you get outside of that and then you start dyeing your uniform a different color, it actually might start to look like some Eastern patterns, like Russia or Russian flora, and some of those other like Eastern camouflage patterns. So you do have to be a little bit careful, but if you're not worried about that, or you just don't care and you're just maybe just trying to get all your buddies into it for as cheap as possible, this is honestly going to be the way to go every time. And it's such a good route. Like I do vouch for it. I do think the thing to do is too, if you're really trying to get a group of people into it that maybe you're kind of on the fence or maybe don't even want to, is buy it like their uniform and just dye it and just distribute it out to them, or have them pay you back for it, because the stuff is not that expensive. And if you dye it all at one time, it's going to save you time and money. So that being my recommendation. And I do think that the Army gear and just dyeing it is such a move, and it's fun and creative and quite the vibe, in my opinion. Some of the stuff that I don't have that I will talk about and recommend is like some of the off-brand, like European or made in China, Chinesium type of gear. The airsoft stuff, I'm sure the clothes are fine. I'm sure some of the gear is like slightly out of spec, but maybe they have a cool like pattern or color that you like. I know, for example, like Emerson Gear makes like camouflage pants. Like if you want to get like an M81 woodland trouser set of pants that have like integrated knee pads, you can get it from them. And I might try one out in the future. I know they're like $80, and like honestly, if you're spending $80 on a pair of like pants for the outdoors, it's probably going to be of decent quality. Although I'm sure you can get better stuff, and maybe there's someone else that's making a pair of trousers in like this color that I don't know of. And then also like some of the airsoft equipment or like airsoft clothes from companies like Emerson Gear. I'm sure you can get like AMR1 and that, and the Marpat might be slightly out of spec. I've seen some really terrible out of spec Marpat that looks just horrible, so I would be careful with that sort of stuff. But I would really only recommend it for like filling a role for a camouflage pattern that you can't find in like a trouser or set of pants like M81. And also there's Ops Tactical, which all that stuff is made in China. However, my experience with it is that it's not bad, and it's usually like made to spec. Like their plate carriers can like hold plates, and it's not made of like bad material. I know some people might be concerned with NIR compliance, and I believe Dirty Civilian did a video on that recently, and like most of this stuff, even whenever it's like a pair, like a shirt or a pair of pants made in like overseas, it's still not like reflective under night vision, or under IR light, which is what you need to be worried about. I'm gonna try to get all my equipment under IR light and just kind of like roll through it and just show what some of it looks like. And So you guys have like a point of reference. You can see what this BDU looks under IR light, see how reflective it is, and other equipment. But I know like Ops Tactical makes some pants that are like either Ranger Green and M81 Woodland, and they're like $140 more. And it's like, if you're paying that much for like a simple trouser, it's probably going to come with some pretty good features, fit your needs well as a citizen, and you might be happy with that product. Now, that's also something I mean to try in the future. So like I said, I don't have all the experience in the world with this stuff. I'm just trying to pass some of this information on to others who are looking into it. And all that being said, I just hope this video helps you with your decision-making process and your camouflage buying and discovering journey. So thank you for watching. Like I said, give the video a thumbs up, and comment below what you liked, what you didn't like, something that you learned, or any questions that you have. And God bless. Have a great day.